NBC5 News presents 2015, the year in review. Here are your hosts, Craig Smullen and Kristen Hosfeld.
Good evening and thanks for choosing this special edition of NBC5 News. I'm Craig Smullen.
And I'm Kristen Hosfeld. Tonight, we're looking back on 2015.
And the stories that affected our community, you and us.
We begin in Roseburg, which garnered national attention on October 1st for all the wrong reasons.
A gunman opened fire on the small Umpqua Community College campus, horrifying the nation and changing the course of countless lives.
Down. We've got multiple gunshot wounds. We're going to need multiple ambulances on scene.
10 people died that day, including the gunman, who was killed by a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Let me be very clear. I will not name the shooter. I will not give him the credit he probably sought prior to this horrific and cowardly act.
In the days following the shooting, we learned more about the lives lost in the tragedy.
18-year-old Rebecca Carnes had just started college with hopes of becoming a dental assistant. 20-year-old Trevin Anspaugh was from Sutherland and worked with Douglas County Fire District Number 2.
67-year-old Lawrence Larry Levine was an assistant professor of English and was in the classroom that was attacked. 34-year-old Jason Johnson was from Winston and had only recently enrolled in school.
18-year-old Lucas Eibel was a quadruplet with 2 brothers and a sister who all graduated from Roseburg High School this year. He was studying chemistry. 18-year-old Quinn Cooper was from Roseburg and had just graduated in June from Roseburg High School.
44-year-old Serena Moore was from Myrtle Creek and was a student at the school studying business. 59-year-old Kim Dietz was from Roseburg. Her daughter is a student at the college but was unharmed in the shooting.
19-year-old Lucero Alcaraz graduated from Roseburg High School this year and aspired to be a pediatric nurse. Another 9 people were injured. 9 days after the horrific shooting at Umpqua Community College, friends and family of one of the youngest victims gathered to celebrate his life.
NBC5 News was the only TV station invited inside the service for Quinn Cooper, a young man described as larger than life. NBC5's Kyle Averman was there.
Through stories,
next thing we know, they come home with the prize. They had the trophy.
Songs,
Won't you stay with me?
prayer,
In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
and drum circles. Hundreds of people who knew 18-year-old Quinn Cooper celebrated his life at Roseburg Christian Fellowship Saturday morning.
What so many people say is that you have 2 dates that define you, but really it's that dash in between that defines who you are. And Quinn, only being 18, had so much definition and lived such an amazing life and obviously touched so many people, as you can see.
Everyone was invited to speak, and those who did say Cooper had a personality that was out of this world.
Quinn was funny, smart, compassionate, kind, gentle-hearted, great with puns. He loved to dance and gave the best hugs ever.
And I loved the smile that he gave so freely and those dimples.
I'll never forget him. He was the sweetest kid in the world.
Just a really good friend.
He wanted to be everyone's friend and enjoyed everything from boxing.
He was supposed to take his brown belt today. Larry is going to take Quinn's brown belt test for him. Quinn will still receive his certificate.
To dancing and drama class. There was only a brief mention of the tragedy that took his life, but this day was about celebrating the life that was and now is.
To this retired educator's eyes, he will be a natural fit as an angel, and I, for one, feel comfort knowing that on your staff you employ an antler-headed, ninja-clothed, MMA-loving, dancing, partly pigeon-toed angel.
While it's clear the hearts of so many are still broken, they feel at peace, knowing this exuberant 18-year-old is now watching from above. In Roseburg, Kyle Laferman, NBC5 News.
Kyle, thank you. President Barack Obama made a statement in response to the shooting within hours. Visibly shaken, the president voiced his frustration regarding the frequency of mass shootings and saying the entire country was in mourning with the city of Roseburg.
Young men and women who were studying and learning and working hard, their eyes set on the future, their dreams on what they could make of their lives.
Just over a week later, President Obama made a 4-day trip to the West Coast, stopping in Roseburg for a few hours to meet privately with the families of the victims and offering his condolences.
President Obama's visit was far from Oregon's only large political story in 2015, as the year was fraught with controversy, beginning very early on with Governor John Kitzhaber's resignation.
No intention of resigning the job I was elected to do.
But just a couple weeks after saying those words, Oregon's only four-time governor did resign in February, just 1 month after being sworn in following the launch of an FBI investigation. Kitzhaber and his fiancée, Sylvia Hayes, are both facing allegations of influence peddling and criminal ethics violations. The investigation continues to unfold, but if found guilty, Kitzhaber could face prison time. And following Kitzhaber's resignation, Democratic Secretary of State Kate Brown took over as governor, becoming the nation's first openly bisexual governor.
Oregon became the third state in our nation to legalize recreational marijuana in late 2014, but spent all of the year working on how to implement the law. On July 1st of this year, it became legal for adults 21 and over, and on October 1st, medical marijuana dispensaries began selling it for recreational purposes. The state is still finalizing how to regulate it.
Oregonians are not ready for this July 1st. I think that people are still trying to figure out what the laws are.
From commercial to home growing to medical and recreational dispensaries, cities and counties are still looking at creating individual and specific laws and regulations. It's something that's caused confusion among the public over what is now legal and what still isn't.
From In-N-Out's ballyhooed arrival to Lithia Motors' continued expansion and a new face at Harry & David, 2015 has been a busy year in business in Southern Oregon and Northern California. Here's just a few highlights of what we've covered in 2015. Supporters of the LNG pipeline got a big win from federal regulators in September. Final approval was granted for building the national gas line. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission says building and operating the terminal and pipeline would cause some environmental damage, but the problems would not be significant with measures proposed by the project developers. The gas terminal in Coos Bay would be the first LNG port on the West Coast. Roughly 150 employees at Erickson Aviation in Central Point were laid off in late February. The company let go of 50 more throughout the country this year.
Now we can start being strategic and looking out 3, 5, 10 years into the future and really leveraging that opportunity to grow the business.
In an exclusive interview with NBC5 News, Harry & David President Steve Lightman said he's optimistic about the company's new direction. Harry & David underwent major changes in February, announcing that 4 of its top executives were out. This after being bought by 1-800-Flowers last year. SOU saw an uptick in enrollment. In July, numbers were down by 9%, but by October, enrollment was up by 2%.
I was just thrilled to hear that this was opening up. My mom was like, we have to do a road trip. I don't care if it's the second day of school for the kids. And so we all piled in the van.
People flocked from all over the state to Medford in September when In-N-Out opened their first restaurant in Oregon. The first week brought a 2-hour wait in the drive-thru and a constant police presence. Even now, the drive-thru line extends into the mall parking lot. And the Medford-Jackson County Chamber of Commerce handed out their most prestigious award, First Citizen, to businesswoman Lynn Henyon.
I am so proud and incredibly honored and so very lucky to live in this community with so many smart, wonderful people. I share this honor with everybody in this room.
For the third consecutive year, Asante was named one of the 15 top health systems in the nation in over 400 health systems across the country. And in August, Lithia Motors was presented the Governor's Gold Award, given to companies, individuals, organizations, and communities that contribute to the greatness of Oregon. On March 1st of this year, NBC5 News brought you Your Place at 7 with Art Barron, a different kind of newscast, letting you interact with us via social media during the show. And Movie Maker magazine names Ashland as #1, the top town in the U.S. to live and work as a movie maker. And the 2015 fire season spanned all summer and into fall with over 630,000 acres burned.
It cost the state more than $240 million in Douglas County. The Stouts fire spanned from July to September. And folks in the Rogue Valley saw the effects. A thick veil of smoke hung in the air for 3 weeks. This year's wildfire defense even drew out the Oregon National Guard, and more than 11,000 firefighters battled the various fires throughout the Pacific Northwest.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NBC5's special presentation of 2015, the year in review.
In February, people were shocked to learn of a punishment that was handed down to a first grader in the Grants Pass School District. The story quickly went viral, over 60,000 shares on Facebook, after Hunter Camello was placed in front of a cardboard box, eating alone, after what the school called repeated tardiness that his family blamed on an unreliable car. We spoke with Grants Pass School District Superintendent John Higgins about the discipline called a confidential cubby.
And the reason for that was to hopefully avoid distraction. There wasn't a set room to do it. There was supervision there.
According to district policy at the time, when a student was tardy more than 4 times in a trimester, they would spend 1 lunch recess making up the time. That policy was reevaluated after NBC5's story aired. Meanwhile, Hunter's family received a car donated to them by Kelly's Automotive, KMED Radio, and Rapid Repo to help get little Hunter to school on time. 2015 will be remembered for many things, among them those we've lost.
In March, Medford native and former Oregon Attorney General and University of Oregon President Dave Frohnmeyer passed away in Eugene.
NBC5's Jennifer Elliott brings us more from friends of a man that dedicated his life to Oregon.
Anything that he did wonderfully.
Lynn Sholin taught David Frohnmeyer music as a child at what was then Medford High School.
As a senior, then, he took choir, and I'm being the director of the choir.
Sholin stayed close to the student throughout his life, a man he says went on to do great things.
Was the only Rhodes Scholar that I know of from this area.
After graduating in Medford, Frohnmeyer attended both Harvard, where he was a Phi Beta Kappa, and Oxford, where he was a Rhodes Scholar. In addition to serving as the president of U of O, Frohnmeyer served in the Oregon House of Representatives and won 6 of the 7 cases he argued in front of the Supreme Court as Oregon's Attorney General.
He is the most successful, brightest, kindest graduate ever of Medford High.
KOBI-TV NBC5 President Patsy Smullen also remembers Frohnmeyer fondly.
He didn't have an arrogant bone in his body. He was so down to earth. It didn't make any difference who you were, what your education was. He was always willing to listen to you.
The late U of O President Emeritus is survived by his wife Lynn, his sons Mark and Jonathan, his daughter Amy, his sister Mira, and brother John. His daughters Kirsten and Katie and his brother Phil had previously passed, as well as his parents, Medford's Maribel and Otto Frohnmeyer. His daughters, Kirsten and Katie, both died from Fanconi anemia, and Dave and his wife Lynn were co-founders of the Fanconi anemia support group for similarly afflicted families around the world.
He never ignored anyone. And he always wanted to know more about them than he wanted to have to reveal about himself. And I think it's a wonderful quality, a beautiful quality. It showed his basic humanity more than anything else.
Just a few weeks ago, as the Advocate for the Arts Award was presented to Frohnmeyer and his family, Sholin says he joined his friend one last time singing their favorite song.
And that's the song that we always did.
Jennifer, thank you. Former state senator and longtime Grants Pass businessman and philanthropist Brady Adams passed away in April. Adams died after a long battle with Parkinson's disease. As president of Evergreen Federal Bank in Grants Pass from 1988 until he retired in 2010, Adams was always giving back. Friends tell NBC5 News he served on more than 20 local nonprofit boards, and he didn't just participate, he led them. His legacy will be long felt throughout Grants Pass in Southern Oregon as he helped to create Bearfest and Tap Rock. Adams was 70 years old.
Eldon Johnson, a longtime former state legislator who represented part of both Jackson and Josephine counties and was known as a man who put principle over politics, passed away in September. Johnson, who was 85, founded what is now known as Grover Electric and Plumbing and sat on several boards in addition to his work in the state legislature, where he was elected to 10 terms. Born in Nebraska, Eldon Johnson is survived by his wife Barbara, their 2 children, and 4 grandchildren.
Tragedy over the summer. In June, a Medford couple died in Alaska after their plane went down. Leonard and June Cranenberg were among 9 people who lost their lives in that crash. While the National Transportation Safety Board is continuing to investigate, their preliminary report said conditions were marginal when the plane crashed into mountainous tree-covered terrain.
And as we go to break, we continue to look back on the lives we've lost this year.
Those who have touched our hearts and our community.
Welcome back. Crime in your community is something we're always monitoring, and throughout 2015, unfortunately, we've covered a lot of it.
Here's just a few of the top crime stories we covered in 2015. After a 6-day trial whose details shocked the Rogue Valley, Susan Monica was found guilty of murder in April. A jury convicted her of killing Stephen Delacino and Robert Haney and feeding them to her pigs. The two men worked on her rural Rogue River property between 2012 and 2013. NBC5 News was in court every day, cameras rolling as Monica took on an active role in her trial.
What did you do last Monday? Any of the people out there are relatives of Robert Haney to leave the courtroom for the next couple of minutes? I do not want them to hear what he has just said, what he is about to say.
Monica was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 50 years.
I don't feel like a hero. I'm glad I was in the right place at the right time, and then I got her the assistance that she needed.
In a dramatic rescue caught on camera, Brookings police officer Jared Freeman saved a woman's life in September when she tried to jump from a bridge.
Don't.
An Ashland teen missing for 3 months was found safe in Northern California in March. Her disappearance catching national attention when it was featured on the NBC Dateline web series Missing in America.
Someone who works in the system, who is in a position of trust and then does something to violate that trust always causes problems.
An OSP forensics analyst came under fire in September, accused of tampering with evidence from as many as 1,000 criminal cases, more than 100 of those out of Jackson County. Klamath County Sheriff Frank Scraw was indicted in September on 9 misdemeanor criminal charges, including assault, strangulation, and official misconduct. The case, which is still playing out in the courts, alleges Scraw used excessive force against 3 suspects. As that investigation unfolded, 8 deputies took non-voluntary, non-disciplinary paid leave for just over 2 weeks based on their request.
I don't believe the jail was opened in a sustainable manner in 2014.
Just a year and a half after a nearly $3 million remodel, Jackson County Sheriff Corey Falls announced the closure of the basement wing of the county jail in November, citing a lack of funding to run it. The closure forced the release of 60 low-risk inmates. Medford police began carrying naloxone in 2015, a drug that reverses the effects of an opiate overdose. In 2015, it was used in 10 cases. Medford Police Chief Tim George retired effective December 1st. Chief George ended his career with 38-plus years in law enforcement and the title of most tenured City of Medford employee. Deputy Chief Randy Sparacino has been named interim chief effective January 1st and will serve until a permanent chief is selected.
And now to one of the most bizarre stories we've ever covered.
And it went viral. A 1,200-square-foot log cabin reported to police as missing in Klamath County in February.
It wasn't already on wheels?
No, it was not. It was on the foundation you see it on now.
The next day, deputies found the home on 9 Mile Road, about 10 miles from Chiloquin in rural Klamath County. The challenging part, trying to determine who it belonged to. NBC2's Lyle Ahrens, who discovered the home, along with police, tries to explain.
Had a complete home stolen.
While the story of a stolen log cabin attracted international attention, police are now trying to unravel the people side of the story and just who owns the rural Klamath County home.
I don't know where we're going to put it or where we're going to book it, but we have a home.
There are 4 different players in the stolen house story. One is Ronald Niederbrock, the original purchaser, who reported the cabin as stolen. The second is Paulette Archambault Callow, acquaintance of Niederbrock, and the third party, Miklos Callow, or Mick, a disabled veteran who had the kit built, and then may have sold the cabin to a fourth party who's identified only as Nick at this time. Detective Eric Shepard explains their roles.
There is a couple, Mick and his wife, and the couple had a falling out, but still lived together under the fact that she was his caretaker, but they were no longer involved in a relationship. She took up a relationship with the reporting party on this. That would be Ronald. So her and Ronald were then together, but Mick still lived with them in the cabin. They lived in the main house. Ronald and Paulette had the falling out and split up. Ronald left. and Mick and Paulette got back together, and they now live together.
A complicated story with no end in sight. One thing we do know, at this time, no criminal charges have been filed. In Klamath Falls, Lyle Ahrens, NBC2 News.
Well, thank you. Now to a story we followed all year with a very happy ending.
4-year-old Helen Lynn became extremely ill from a dangerous strain of E. coli in 2013, and as a result, she needed a new kidney. In early August of 2015, a donor was approved, Lori Moyer, an acquaintance of Helen's mother, Lauren. Finally, in late October, Helen received her kidney transplant. She's still adjusting to the new adult-sized kidney, but was quickly improving after surgery.
And 1 year after winning the NAIA national title, the SOU football team finished just shy of repeating as champions, losing in the title game in December. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We've got a busy year ahead, both locally and nationally.
Here's some of what we're looking forward to in 2016. In the political world, all eyes are on November, when America will choose our next president. Leading into 2016, Democrat Hillary Clinton and Republican Donald Trump remain frontrunners.
In Oregon, U.S. Senator Ron Wyden is up for re-election. Governor Kate Brown will face her first election as governor, with the leading challenger to this point being Republican oncologist Bud Pierce.
Meanwhile, Central Point Republican Dennis Richardson, who ran for governor in the past, is now running for Secretary of State.
Regulations on marijuana will take the forefront in Oregon in 2016. Beginning in January, the OLCC will take over implementing and overseeing an application and inspection process, along with fees and taxation. And several cities and counties will have marijuana-related ballot measures of their own.
Representative Peter Buckley is giving up his House seat, retiring from politics when his term ends in 2016. Ashland City Councilor Pam Marsh has already announced she will run for the seat in Salem.
Both Southern Oregon University and Rogue Community College are searching for new leaders. SOU interim president Roy Saigo will not extend his contract at the end of the school year, and RCC's president Peter Angstad will retire on June 30th. A national search is currently underway at both schools. We want to thank you for watching our 2015 Year in Review and for sharing the unforgettable year with us.
As we begin a new year, we're thrilled that you'll be with us every step of the way.
Good night.